waiting for a visa. In 1916, I returned to India. I had been sent to America by His Highness the Maharaja of Baroda for higher education. I studied at Columbia University in New York from 1913 to 1917. In 1917, I came to London and joined the postgraduate department of the School of Economics of the University of London. LNL 918. I was obliged to return to India without completing my studies. As I was educated by the Baroda State, I was bound to serve the state. Accordingly, on my arrival, I straightway went to Baroda. The reasons why I left Baroda service are quite irrelevant to my present purpose. I do not therefore wish to enter into them. I am only concerned with my social experiences in Baroda, and I will confine myself to describing them. My 5 years of stay in Europe and America had completely wiped out of my mind any consciousness that I was an untouchable, and that an untouchable whenever he went in India was a problem to himself and to others. But when I came out of the station, my mind was considerably disturbed by a question: where to go? Who will take me? I felt deeply agitated. Hindu hotels, called wishes, I knew there were. They would not take me. The only way of seeking accommodation therein was by impersonation. But I was not prepared for it, because I could well anticipate the dire consequences which were sure to follow if my identity was discovered, as it was sure to be. I had friends in Baroda who had come to America for study. Would they welcome me if I went? I could not assure myself. They may feel embarrassed by admitting an untouchable in their household. I stood under the roof of the station for some time, thinking where to go, what to do. It then struck me to inquire if there was any place in the camp. All passengers had by this time gone. I alone was left. Some hackney drivers who had failed to pick up any traffic were watching and waiting for me. I called one of them and asked him if he knew if there was a hotel in the camp. He said that there was a Parsi inn and that they took paying guests. Hearing that it was an inn maintained by the Parsis, my heart was gladdened. The Parsis are followers of the Zoroastrian religion. There was no fear of my being treated by them as an untouchable, because their religion does not recognize untouchability. With a heart glad with hope and a mind free from fear, I put my luggage in a hackney carriage and asked the driver to drive me to Parsi Inn in the camp. The inn was a 2-storied building on the ground floor of which lived an old Parsi with his family. He was a caretaker and supplied food to tourists who came there to stay. The carriage arrived and the Parsi caretaker showed me upstairs. I went up while the carriage driver brought up my luggage. I paid him and he went away. I felt happy that, after all, I had solved my problem of finding a sojourn. I was undressing as I wanted to be at ease. In the meantime, the caretaker came with a book in his hand. Seeing, as he could well see from my half-undressed state, that I had no sadra and kasti, the two things which prove that one is a Parsi, in a sharp tone he asked me who I was. Not knowing that this inn was maintained by the Parsi community for the use of Parsis only, I told him that I was a Hindu. He was shocked and told me that I could not stay in the inn. I was thoroughly shocked by his answer and was cold all over. The question returned again: where to go? Composing myself, I told him that though a Hindu, I had no objection to staying there if he had no objection. He replied, "How can you? I have to maintain a register of all those who stay here in the inn." I saw his difficulty. I said I could assume a Parsi name for the purpose of entering it in the register. "Why do you object? If I do not object, you will not lose. You will earn something if I stay here." I could see that he was inclined favorably. Evidently he had had no tourist for a long time, and he did not like to forego the opportunity of making a little money. He agreed, on condition that I pay him ₹1.50 per day for board and lodging, and entered myself as a Parsi in his register. He went downstairs and I heaved a sigh of relief. The problem was solved and I felt very happy. But alas, I did not then know how short was to be this happiness. But before I describe the tragic end of my stay in this inn, I must describe how I passed my time during the short period I lived therein. The inn on the first floor had a small bedroom, and adjoining it was one small bathroom with a water tap in it. The rest was one big hall. At the time of my stay, the big hall was filled up with all sorts of rubbish, planks, benches, broken chairs, etc. In the midst of the surroundings I lived a single solitary individual. The caretaker came up in the morning with a cup of tea. He came again at about 9:30 with my breakfast or morning meal. A third time he came up at about 8:30 in the evening with my dinner. The caretaker came up only when he could not avoid it, and on these occasions he never stayed to talk to me. The day was spent. Somehow, I was appointed a probationer in the Accountant General's office by the Maharaja of Baroda. I used to leave the inn at about 10 a.m. for the office and return late at about 8 in the evening, contriving to while away outside the inn as much time in company of friends as I could. The idea of returning to the inn to spend the night therein was most terrifying to me, and I used to return to the inn only because I had no other place under the sky to go for rest. In this big hall on the first floor of the inn, there were no fellow human beings to talk to. I was quite alone. The whole hall was enveloped in complete darkness. There were no electric lights nor even oil lamps to relieve the darkness. The caretaker used to bring up for my use a small hurricane lamp. Its light could not extend beyond a few inches. I felt that I was in a dungeon, and I longed for the company of some human being to talk to. But there was none. In the absence of the company of human beings, I sought the company of books and read and read. Absorbed in reading, I forgot my lonely condition. But the chirping and flying about of the bats, which had made the hall their home, often distracted my mind and sent cold shivers through me, reminding me of what I was endeavoring to forget, that I was in a strange place under strange conditions. Many a time I must have been angry, but I subdued my grief and my anger by the feeling that though it was a dungeon, it was a shelter, and that some shelter was better than no shelter. So heartrending was my condition that when my sister's son came from Bombay bringing my remaining luggage which I had left behind, and when he saw my state, began to cry so loudly that I had to send him back immediately. In this state I lived in the Parsi in impersonating a Parsi. I knew that I could not long continue this impersonation, as I would be discovered some day. I was therefore trying to get a state bungalow to stay in. But the Prime Minister did not look upon my request with the same urgency. My petition went from officer to officer, and before I got the final reply, the day of my doom arrived.